Commissioner Gibson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To Ed Euling, Senator Reid attended Basic High School in Henderson. You'd have to be here early in the meeting to understand the context of this, but he met a really influential teacher by the name of Michael Callahan at Basic High School in Henderson. And the things that he reflects, as much as anything, really do come from the early tutelage of people who mattered a lot. My family goes back a long way with the Reids. My grandfather knew Harry Reid's father and employed him from time to time when things were slow in Searchlight. And that relationship passed along to the next generation. My father worked with Senator Reid at many different levels, but particularly when they were both in the legislature together. I have had the occasion to work with Senator Reid on countless issues. During the years that I served as mayor of the city of Henderson, 12 years, there wasn't a year, not a single year passed that we didn't have a major issue where there were federal issues that had to be addressed. And I spent more time than I cared to in Washington, D.C. working on those issues, largely under the sponsorship of Senator Reid, whose objective it was to solve those problems in a way that made sense for Henderson. No one can dispute the good he's done for the state of Nevada and the good that he has done for the city of Henderson, that at a time when we were breaking into a growth pattern that would end up having us named and recognized as the fastest growing city in the entire country. All of that experience has been helpful to me to get to know his capability, his leadership, and the direction that he would have things move in. I want to thank and recognize the people in my district who have reached out to me. I think the number this morning was something like 650 emails had been received from people in my district. And I have to estimate another couple of hundred texts and phone calls to me from people who have my number in my district. And, you know, it's interesting, we are constantly asking people in the community to join in the debate, to become a part of the discussion. Volunteer when you can. It doesn't need to be a long standing commitment. It doesn't have to be for lots of hours. It just needs to be in a way that expresses a view and expresses interest and provides whatever assistance one can give. I've appreciated all of this outreach. As one might imagine, and I don't know that I'm any different from the others up here, but there has been a very, very divided narrative as I have taken a look at everything that I can look at that has come across my desk or through the computer. And it's, I guess the one comment I would make is this: the timing couldn't be worse to be doing something that is perceived, irrespective of what my colleagues would suggest here, irrespective of any of that, it is seen by people who are not Democrats. In some cases, there are Democrats, but in some cases, or most cases, not. And in cases where people find themselves on the other side of the political fence from the senator, as evidenced by the things that we're reading and seeing in our district inboxes. And the country is in a unique place right now. People's emotions are raw. The politics of the day, irrespective of who you blame, are real and they're honest. And there are many who are accusing this board of doing a name change today, and not so much whether the name is changed, but doing a name change and naming Senator Reid as the one after whom the airport would be called, as something that we're doing because we can, because there are a bunch of Democrats sitting up here. That's really unfortunate. That doesn't do any justice to the service that the senator's given. but I think it is reflective of the reality in the community. I have struggled with this for that very reason. I have wished that this did not have to happen right now. I have wished that we could have had some time to have more of a discussion in the community instead of just a series of one-sided views being expressed and fired off over the email. They had an advantage in the old days. You couldn't communicate unless you had somebody's ear. And today we don't need someone's ear. We just are constantly putting out what we think, and it's very difficult to say that we're really engaging with the community when we don't have an opportunity for them to express or to be persuaded or to persuade others. So that has really been the part of the difficulty that I've gone through. And I don't argue with those who would suggest that Senator McCarran was someone who had views that caused him to act in ways that have been reported in this meeting today. I don't dispute any of that, and I think that his personally held views are reprehensible to the extent that he tried to put them off in not just in the public discourse, but in the laws of this land, is another reprehensible act. And for those reasons, even though I know that Senator McCarran was responsible for a lot of good and a lot of things that form the basis on which we rely for commerce and success in this community, I'm not one who would argue that Senator McCarran has gotten to the point now we've learned enough about Senator McCarran at this point that his name can come down. I'm not going to argue against that. I do think there is some value in the Las Vegas International Airport name, but that's not what's in front of us today. What's in front of us today is naming the airport after a public servant and a political figure. And we did that years ago. I think it was in '41 when the airport was acquired by local government. I think Senator McCarran was responsible for bringing federal dollars to help in the purchase and to fund it. I would say this, whatever we do today, and I think it's pretty clear from the voices we've heard that this action will go forward, it needs to be at no cost to the public. And I think we should do everything we can do to mitigate the costs to the private sector. There are those, for instance, who will have questions about whether or not their certificates for disadvantaged business enterprise or minority business enterprise need to be resubmitted to the county or to the airport for reissuance. They won't know. Those people rely very heavily on that designation and those certificates. If there is no such airport any longer, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, we're at a time that the issue and the debate we're having today is long in the rearview mirror. They need to be able to have certainty that those certificates will still have value and that though there is no such airport any longer, they don't need to worry about that. And I think that it is incumbent upon us to research that and put it out so they don't have to go to lawyers and pay for legal expenses. There are businesses that have business cards and menus and stationery and all manner of the things that one needs as stock in the business they conduct that are going to have to replace those and reprint them. I think there needs to be a process designed so that the burden of the change does not fall on either the public or those directly affected in the private sector. It isn't fair to them, and this economy has been so incredibly unfair. To add anything more in the way of a financial burden to anyone would be the dead wrong thing to do. Yeah, I think the process is kind of interesting. If you think about what's going to happen now, on a positive vote or an affirmative vote, this matter is going to be referred to the FAA. It will go over the signature of our Director of Aviation. It will get there, and it will be evaluated. Who knows what it is they look at, but be certain that the process can be guided by 2 United States senators who are very big fans of Senator Reid, who will obviously be in a position at the federal level to influence things in a positive way when it comes to the application. So the thing that we're doing today is making a recommendation and approving the action should it be approved at the federal level, but it isn't over here, and there are other things that will obviously have to be done. So I suppose what it comes down to is, while I have countless friends, even family, who are very much opposed to taking this action, and I have, believe me, I have heard from every one of them, this action will end up in having an effect not only today and in the future in terms of the naming and the expense associated with the change and all of that, but it'll have an effect in the way that this community absorbs it and how it either fuels the flame of divisiveness that exists in the community, or maybe there will be some way for people to come together and be able to endorse it so that they can be more united as a community. I'm guessing it'll be the former for the first little while. I wish not for that to be the case, but it is likely that that'll happen. So, having said that, while I have not been one who has, and I've spoken to my colleague, Commissioner Sagerblum, I would have wished this wouldn't have come forward. I might have seen other ways to do it, maybe even another outcome. It would not be to disparage the senator or his family. I know not all, but almost all of his children. I know his son-in-law. I have great respect for them, and I have a long-standing relationship with them. This is not, my comments should not be taken as directed at them or their father's reputation or his standing in our community, nor the tremendous effects for the positive, for the good that he has had on our state. Rather, it is more a question of, is this really what we need to continue to do forever, is name things after people, particularly since times change, people change, and as a result, names change. So my hope is that this will all work through for us. It'll be a good thing on balance, and I guess, Madam Chair, I'll yield to you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner McCarty.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you all who stayed around to see this historic moment happen. But I rise today in enthusiastic support of the renaming of the McCarran Airport. We have to ask ourselves, who do we want to be? What do we want to be seen as? And when my kid walks through the airport and they ask, who is McCarran? I want to be able to tell them the truth and also tell them the part that I played in making sure that that old history did not remain current today. So this is about righting some of the wrongs of the past. And while Mr. McCarran former Senator McCarran may have made significant contributions to the aviation community, and specifically here right in Las Vegas, we have to ask ourselves, is this time to change? And yes, for some it may be politically sticky, some it may hurt a little bit, but this is the right time. Over this past year, under the previous administration, we've witnessed countless attacks on immigrant families, communities of color, Black communities, and I couldn't be more proud to support renaming McCarran Airport after someone who has done just the opposite, which is fight for immigrant communities, Black communities, working families, labor, hardworking folks right here in the state of Nevada and here Clark County. This is about making a change for the better. And in Black History Month, I would like to ask, which would Dr. King posed, and he said, the time is always right to do what is right. It may not be comfortable, but it is right. It is right to support someone who has supported the community, who has uplifted working families, someone who has saved the industry that we seek to bring back today, the hospitality industry. I actually worked on the City Center project. I managed the Cosmopolitan Inn as well as the Veer Towers when we were going through that economic downturn. And you're talking about devastation when we talk about the bottom fallout, see families hurting, not knowing how they're going to feed their children, But then-
Commissioner, I feel your passion, but I feel like you're yelling at your colleagues.
Oh,
and
no, no, no.
I hope that that's the way it's coming off to me, so I hope that that's not the intention.
Well, after reviewing my colleagues, I could say that we're all on the same page, Madam Chair. And it's not that I'm yelling at my colleagues, but I am saying for anyone who may be listening that this is the right time to make this change. Now, if my passion comes off as disrespect to anyone, that is not my intent,
No, I appreciate it. I'm just the tone.
but I am passionate, and I think that people need to know exactly what significant change this will mean for our community. And as we continue to have this discussion, and this discussion will not end today with this vote, I would encourage people to do the research, to understand who Senator Reid was, what he stood for. And as a former labor member, and as someone who has been on the right side of advocating for working families, I am proud to cast my vote for former Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid. I can't think of anyone who is more deserving of this recognition. And if this last year has taught us anything, it is to give those who we care about, who have done a lot to uplift the lives of others, their flowers while they are living. And this is a fitting recognition for former Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Sager-Bloom, did you want to make a motion? And I would entertain a motion that included things such as private contributions, would pay for all associated expenses with the name change, which I think includes making sure that all of that gets taken care of, and that the resolution include the minutes of today.
Can I adopt that motion? Yes,
Sure.
I'd like to make that motion, Madam Chair, that we direct the Director of Aviation, Ms. Vasiliadis, to send a letter to the FAA indicating that the County Commission would like to change the name of the airport from McCarran International Airport to Harry Reid International Airport, that all costs associated with that change would be borne by private contributions, and Commissioner Gibson made a good point. I think that should also include the private sector that's involved at the airport. We'd have to have some kind of mechanism, so they couldn't just submit a bill, but we would evaluate that bill. But I do think that no one should have to suffer from this economically. We do have contributions lined up, and we will figure out a way to collect those and then make sure it's covered.
Okay. Ms. Miller, is that motion understood? Yeah, and including today's minutes? Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please cast your vote. And that motion passes.